guys, Cousin Benny coming to you on October 27th, Sunday, with a look at the week ahead and my thoughts on whether or not we see a turn in the indices soon. We do have a Kirby shelf here as support, where I've highlighted here, and we could continue to move sideways along this upper trend line if ADX continues to move higher. Looking at the other indicators, NIMO is fading a bit. The MACD hasn't given us a cross. It is fading here a little bit in momentum. NYSE hasn't given us a crossover, so that looks bullish. And the SPX A50R, the number of stocks trading above their 50-period moving average, is moving lower or fading a little bit. So for the most part, we are higher on lower volume, but it's just a matter of whether or not what's going on underneath the surface is something to be concerned about. I pointed that out in my blog this weekend. So watch for failed breakouts, as we saw many this past week compared to the rally weeks 1 and 2 here, 1 and 2, starting on that Wednesday low at 10 on October 9th. Many of those stocks continue to move higher, and then the last week have failed some of the leaders. So keep an eye on that for signs that this may change the picture in this current week. This is a chart of the comp, and we can see pretty much the same picture. I put in some new trend lines here because we broke above this trend line that went back to that May high and the subsequent pivot in August. So I'm watching those levels. I forgot to turn on the volume and price, so just keep that in mind. We need to take a look at that. But we do have support down here where we broke above this level at 34.19 a few weeks, a week ago, where we broke above that level, and now we're grinding above this trend line and this new trend line with our 10 EMA just below price. So, and of course this gap was on the Google earnings. Now as far as bullish percent, we have been in this area for most of the year, so I don't see that as a problem. We haven't seen any extremes. We are at 70.81%. NAMO is moving lower. It's nearing the zero line. NASI isn't giving us a cross, so that's bullish. And MACD, although positive, the momentum is still bullish. Note ADX is climbing as well here, as well as the S&P 500. So until this turns around and peaks, like we saw here in that May peak on the comp, until we see that kind of turn, I would think that this is bullish. Like we saw here in August, where we turn lower. And a chart of the Russell 2000 small cap. So this has been flagging sideways. Support is down here, but we should really move this up to this level where we broke above it at 1087.78 last week. So keep an eye on that. Note RSI is moving sideways. This could turn back up. And also note that we crossed down below 80 on slow to stochastics. This is set to 5-1, just my preference. The Russell to the S&P 500, relative strength is still moving higher, and the rate of change moved above and almost at 7.18%. So broke above this little trend line. And note ADX is at 22.75 and it's pointing higher. So this could continue to give us a bullish bias if we continue to move sideways and this trend resumes higher on the Russell. This is a chart of the XII ARCA Institutional Index, which is a capitalization-weighted index of 75 stocks most widely held by equity investments among institutional equity portfolios. The significance is the index is designed to reflect the performance of core holdings of institutions. So watching the buying and selling of these institutions as they push the market around with these stocks, you can see what stocks are in here, all commonly known names and their weighted percentage. Keep an eye on this. This is above the trend line as well. Look for the 10 EMA to turn or the ADX to change directions. I don't have it on this particular chart, but the RSI is almost back up to 70. And note the divergence on the MACD histogram. Stochastics did turn this week, so we could see some of these big cap names start to fuel the markets if earnings start to continue to play out. So personally, I am leaning more towards a change of trend in the very near future, so I'm mostly playing options, and I'm nearly, I think, 30% invested in my 401k. I'm trying to get a little bit more out. Now, with regard to the ARCA Institutional Index components, I have those in a chart group. So let's take a look at some of these. See, Abbott Labs is moving sideways, flagging. ABX, I noted a few of the gold names look pretty good. Amgen is flagging at highs. American Express broke out on Friday. That's a good sign on a flag. Amazon, nice gap up on Friday. Boeing continues to move higher. So these are all looking fairly nice compared to some of the other stocks that many of the traders on StockTwits and Twitter trade on a regular basis. Those 20 or 30 movers and shakers actually failed this week, with the exception of Chipotle, SAVE, IGTE, Berkshire Hathaway, Colgate. It's right at highs. I mean, this could break out. This is a good consumer staples name. Comcast moving higher. Remember we talked about this a few weeks back when it came down to the 50 period moving average and the 20. It actually sat on the 20. It didn't get down to the 50. Or maybe it was this occurrence. Continuing to move higher. ConocoPhillips, nice little pullback to the 10 EMA. This is the 20 here. Cisco languishing a little bit. Remember, this is 75 stocks. CVS, almost an outside day there at highs. CVX, Chevron Corp, right at the 50 period moving average. DuPont, Disney, GE's flagging out here, could move higher. Freeport, McMoran looking good. EMC not so much. eBay not so much. Goldcorp and the gold name obviously. Let's look at the next group. Goldman Sachs looking pretty good. Home Depot. Honeywell at highs. Kraft about to break out or see a double top here. Coca-Cola. JP Morgan bouncing on the 50. MasterCard at highs. 3M looking really nice. Altria. PepsiCo, almost a bullish engulfing pattern here, or candle. Oxy, really nice setup here off of the 20 period. This is something I'd be looking at on Monday. Procter & Gamble flagging here. Pfizer flagging. Qualcomm, nice reversal candle there. Royal Bank of Canada. Royal Bank of Canada is probably the 10 EMA right in here somewhere. Let's take a look at this for you Canadian. Yep, there's the 10 period EMA. So I'd keep an eye on this. On balance volumes, quite nice. It's moving sideways. It did tick up a little bit. Stochastics is recycling, so that could be a good sign. I'd watch RY. Schlumberger, nice flag. That's probably the 10 EMA. Yep, sitting right on the 10 EMA. Looks really nice. On balance volume, continuing to move higher. And note the Kirby, there's nothing up here to hold it back. Stochastics is recycling, as we had this little pullback. This would be a nice name to look at on Monday. Suncor, Simon Property continues to move higher. AT&T, Toronto Dominion, another Canadian bank. Target, so-so. Time Warner continues to move higher. It's probably the 10 AMA underneath price there. Yep, looks good. Above 70 RSI. On balance volume is pretty much sideways for a good 6 months. And overbought. Wow, UPS looks really, really nice. I mean, obviously you wouldn't chase it here, but at highs, this could be where some of this stuff pulls in, but for the most part, there are some good names in the energy sector. Verizon, Wells Fargo, might get a bull cross here, and XOM. So keep an eye on those components. So let's take a look at the top 20 movers and shakers that a lot of traders, momentum traders play. You see Chipotle here, blocks pulling back. The first 2 weeks of that rally off of the October 9th low, you can see we had a nice rally and then we gave it all back week number 2 on last week. So Beta, same thing. AMBA, you can see all of these similar patterns. NQ, I'd stay away from Chinese names for the time being. If you have any existing positions, I'd be managing those. That's fun, moving back down. Yandex, Yelp, Vips, Save, it's flagging somewhat. Not that worrisome in terms of volume. QIHU held off the 50 period. Maybe we see a bounce in these names going into the week. Out of all these names, though, obviously Chipotle's the best one. Moving higher. Note the volume that we saw the past 2 weeks. On balance volume continuing to cruise higher. So, and relative strength of the S&P 500 looks really good. So keep an eye on bond yields as well, especially junk bonds. Let's take a look at that. That's something I wanted to focus on. There's some have considered this to be a little bit of greed showing up now. Prices are continuing to move higher. Prices are being chased on junk high yield bonds. Alright, so price is what it is, but this is getting a little frothy up here. And we have a double top at 40.90. So watch for any weakness on the junk bonds. Also watch DBV, the carry trade, which is inherent in this particular fund, the Currency Harvest Fund. The Deutsche Bank looks at the yields, the high yields versus the low yields, countries, and you want to see this moving higher to be bullish for equities. Right now we saw a little gap down and we're down below the 10 and the 30. I'm a little hoarse because I'm still sick after 3 weeks. So, alright, let's take a look at the US dollar. Oops, that's not it. Looking at the US dollar, this is a lot worse than I thought. We're at lows we haven't seen since late 2012, early 2013. We could see a spread triple bottom here and a possibility of a bounce, which wouldn't be good for equities, by the way. At least until this changes correlation, I should say. Looking at the euro, up at 138. Keep an eye on that. This should drift back down to the 10 period shortly. Alright, so that's going to do it for me. I'll post a watch list on my site, theclosingprint.com. Right over here, as I usually do. Some of these names did okay. Drive, we got about $1.25 out of that one. Sohu, I'm not sure what happened with that one, if it broke down or not, but let's take a look at those. AFOP, DSX. Yeah, we had this channel here. It looks like we're coming down to that lower part of that channel before we see a bounce. Drive, Digital River, almost an outside day here on Friday. Let's see what happens on Monday. But we got a channel break here, if you draw that trend line, and we got in on Monday. I know we got a buck out of it, so that would be 1850, thereabouts. Sohu, another Chinese name. I didn't expect that to look too well. And Baidu, which the wife had some. She got rid of those this past week. A little choppy. But she's had it since in this area right here after earnings, after JCOM, rode this thing down to, I don't know where it was, down in the 90s, I guess. After being in it earlier, I believe, JCOM. Anyway, he finally got his exit at 165, so congrats to JCOM on that one. Alright, so that's going to do it for me. I hope this helps. Cousin Vinny coming to you from theclosingprint.com and Day Trader Bootcamp. Come and check us out. I believe, come check us out at Day Trader Bootcamp. Have a lot of good traders in the room. Excellent traders. This is the post from this past weekend, or from Saturday, I should say. If you prefer to read rather than listen to a video. Okay? Take care, and we'll see you in the chat on Monday.